Hello, my name is Danny Cash, and I am here once again to do Premier League predictions for you. Last week went actually really well. I got 7 out of the 10 results correct, 3 exact scores correct, and so a lot better than I did the first week. Hopefully, I can continue that and have some good predictions moving into match week 3. So when we take a look at the fixtures here, the first one that comes up is a pretty solid one: Arsenal and Brighton. Both teams have coming off of 2 wins to start the season, and like seeing if either of them can stay undefeated moving forward. Someone's going to have to lose points at some point, and this is going to be a close matchup, I think, regardless. I think this is going to be similar to Brighton's result, where it was a 2-1 score against Manchester United. But in this case, I'm going to give the edge to Arsenal, getting the 2-1 victory over Brighton. I think Arsenal are just going to be a little bit better than Brighton, and them being at home, I think I'm going to give them the slight advantage. Next, we've got Brentford and Southampton. Brentford, they again had a tough matchup against Liverpool, and then previously got a win against Crystal Palace, where Southampton got beat by Forest and Newcastle to start off the year. I'm very concerned about Southampton and their inability to actually make quality chances despite the amount of possession that they have. And then I think this with Brentford's really good at countering. And I think where they've had success in the past, especially against big teams, is being able to counter well and use their pace to be able to get in behind teams when they turn the ball over. And so I feel like this is a big win potentially coming here, and I'm going to give the win to Brentford. I am going to give the benefit of the doubt and say that Southampton will find some goal here. Maybe it's a consolation goal, but I am predicting a 3-1 score for Brentford here. Next, we've got Everton versus Bournemouth. Everton has had 2 straight losses to start the year against Brighton and Tottenham, and Bournemouth got a draw against Forest and a draw against Newcastle. So neither of them have their first win, but Everton is concerning because you're leaking that many goals, although playing Brighton and Tottenham as your first 2 teams in your schedule is not easy either. Bournemouth, again, only 1 goal per game. Maybe they haven't clicked it fully offensively. So this one's tough to line up exactly who's going to move forward here. I am concerned about mistakes that Everton makes defensively, and I think in this case that could be the difference, where then I'm going to give a 1-0 victory to Bournemouth in this matchup. Hopefully Everton can turn things around eventually, but I think it won't be this game. Next, we've got Ipswich and Fulham. Ipswich have had a tough start, and everyone looking at their schedule knew this. Manchester City and Liverpool are 2 tough teams to start with. This is their first real opportunity to feel like they can legitimately get points on the board. Now, Fulham is not going to necessarily roll over either. They put Manchester United to a very tough 1-0 defeat, and then they won against Leicester 2-1 last week. So Fulham looks that they're going to be pretty decent. I'm going to give a bit of a push to the Ipswich fans to say that they're going to really make this tough on Fulham. They're going to be really out there and excited that Ipswich can get some points on the board. I do think that's going to kind of nullify itself, though, and I'm going to call this a 1-1 draw. So Ipswich do get their first points, but still searching for that first win of the Premier League season. Next is Leicester and Aston Villa. Aston Villa have looked solid beating West Ham, although then losing to Arsenal. And Leicester has done decently, drawing against Tottenham in their opening match, and then a loss to Fulham. So one thing that I see here is Leicester, I think, will be good at home. It'll be curious of what their away form ends up being. And Aston Villa, I think, will be a solid team throughout. I think hitting Arsenal as your second game of the season is tough. And so I do see this being maybe closer than what some people would think. But I am still going to give the edge to Aston Villa. Just a 2-1 result for Aston Villa to get 3 points this weekend. Next is Forest and Wolves. Forest have got a 1-0 win against Southampton and then a draw against Bournemouth, where then Wolves have kind of a 8-goal thriller that they lost to Chelsea 6-2, and then a loss to Arsenal. So Wolves have had a tough schedule, and so this might be one where they're targeting that they could get some points out of. I am curious to see when they scored 2 goals in that last matchup. Maybe they've got some scoring boots ready to go. And Forest, I think, they're getting the points that they need at the moment, but I am concerned about them long term, is if they get into a rut. In this case, I'm going to support that that Wolverhampton is going to get a fair bit of goals here. I'm going to go for a 3-1 victory for Wolverhampton here. That maybe that Chelsea game and all those goals woke them up, and they're now going to really take Forest to the sword here. So Wolves getting the 3 points. Next, we have West Ham and Man City. Again, Man City has started with 2 wins, unsurprisingly, beating Chelsea and then Ipswich, and West Ham losing a close one to Aston Villa and then beating Crystal Palace. I do see this one as being a tight one. I think West Ham are going to be pretty decent. And Man City, only a 2-0 win against Chelsea. Maybe that's reasonable. I think this is going to be close, and enough that Man City's still going to get their points. But I think defensively West Ham are solid, and I think maybe Man City might just get the 1 goal on the board and walk away with the 3 points away from home. It may not be their best showing, but they will still walk away with 3 points. Next, we've got Chelsea and Crystal Palace. Chelsea, again, winning that big 6-2 matchup against Wolves, and Crystal Palace losing to West Ham in their last matchup. When I look at this here, I feel like, again, it's a scenario where Chelsea's going to feel successful if they're scoring lots of goals, but I think that there's still lots of mistakes defensively in them. And so I'm going to give Chelsea the advantage here at home, but I think it's going to be kind of a relatively large amount of goals. I'm going to go with 3-2. That's maybe a little bit conservative, but I'm going to go with a 3-2 victory for Chelsea. They'll get their second win of the season. Then we've got 2 more games left. Our first one is Newcastle and Tottenham. With Newcastle, they've were able to get a win against Southampton and then drew against Bournemouth. And then Tottenham got the draw against Leicester and then beat Everton 4-0. And so this is an interesting one because I think Newcastle is solid defensively. I don't know what they'll see too much, on the offensive side. Where then Tottenham, I think, they've got some good pieces, but I think it will take a little bit to get into a groove. I think, some people would look at this and probably lean towards Tottenham. I'm going to go maybe with a bold prediction, and I'm going to say that this is going to end in a draw. And I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. Newcastle, Tottenham splitting the points here today. The last one is Manchester United and Liverpool. Again, a big rivalry here. Man United losing to Brighton last weekend, and Liverpool being 2 for 2, beating Brentford and Ipswich. Couple things that I want to mention here is, one, Liverpool has looked pretty good, but they've also been facing Brentford and Ipswich. So this is probably a step up in the competition that they've had so far. And Manchester United, has had close games. They got that last goal against Fulham in their opening matchup to get their first win. But one thing I note about Manchester United, at least more recently, is that when they don't have possession, they're almost a little bit more better, or a little bit better, a little bit more clinical. They do well at getting the counter, and getting opportunities from that. And so I feel like it might be set up that way, where then Liverpool has a lot of the possession, but then Manchester United gets a chance to counter, or a couple chances to counter, and one of those gets put away. And so I don't think they're going to be able to take Liverpool off the scoreboard the whole time, but I think this is closer than what most people would predict. I'm going to give this also a 1-1 draw, which again would probably be a surprise for Liverpool fans, but I think that could be how it plays out here, especially if Man United can get that first goal in that matchup. It's going to be really tough to then try to get that equalizer for Liverpool. So those are my predictions. Comment down below if you have your own predictions. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what I'm doing here. I'm going to be doing this throughout the year, as well as I'm doing some Champions League content, and we'll see what other content from even any other sports that I might be doing in the future. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.